The evening was calm and filled with a quiet excitement that could be felt all around the small town's performing arts center. People of all ages had come to watch the final concert of the season. It was an event everyone looked forward to, a night when local young musicians showed their talent after months of hard work. The hall was packed, filled with parents, friends, teachers, and music lovers. The soft murmur of voices mixed with the sound of footsteps and the rustle of programs being opened and closed. In one of the front rows sat a group of older women chatting softly, while a few children fidgeted, excited but nervous about the performances to come. The lights were still bright, illuminating the polished wooden stage where the orchestra and soloists would perform. Backstage things were quiet but busy. Musicians tuned their instruments, adjusted their music stands, and whispered last-minute encouragement to one another. Among the performers was a young violinist known for being serious and focused. She had been practicing for months to prepare for this night. It was the biggest chance she had so far to show her skill. Her solo piece was long and difficult, full of fast runs and soft, delicate parts that required careful control. It was a piece many admired but few dared to try. The solo was scheduled as the last part of the concert, a moment that would shine a bright light on the soloist. She stood quietly in the wings, her violin case in hand, waiting for her moment. Her heart was beating fast but steady, not from fear but from deep concentration. She took slow breaths to calm herself and tried to picture the music in her mind. The hall was now mostly silent, the audience waiting expectantly. The conductor gave a gentle nod, signaling the orchestra to get ready. The stage lights dimmed a little, focusing on the spot where she would stand. The conductor raised his baton. A soft hush fell over the audience. Then she stepped forward, holding her violin close. She placed the instrument under her chin and drew the bow across the strings. The first notes filled the hall, gentle and clear. The music was beautiful and moved many people in the audience. Her fingers moved quickly, expertly playing each note with care and feeling. Her eyes were closed at times, lost in the music. At other moments, she looked up, watching the conductor and the orchestra staying perfectly in time. It was as if she and the music were one. For the first few minutes, everything went smoothly. The audience was completely focused, some leaning forward, others closing their eyes to better feel the sound. Parents smiled proudly, knowing how hard their child had worked for this moment. Teachers nodded quietly, recognizing the skill and passion in the performance. It was a night to remember. But then something unexpected happened. A voice, loud and clearly out of tune, broke through the music. It was strange and distracting, like a wrong note played on purpose, but not by the orchestra or soloist. The voice was coming from the back of the hall near the entrance. It was rough and childish, a sharp contrast to the flowing violin melody. At first, no one was sure what it was. Some thought it might be a mistake, someone coughing or clearing their throat. But the voice grew louder, repeating a few notes in a mocking way. It was like someone was trying to copy the violin, but in the worst possible way. The quiet hush of the concert was broken, replaced by confusion and a bit of anger. The soloist's fingers tightened on the violin. She opened her eyes, startled. She looked toward the back of the hall and saw a young man standing there, holding a small plastic recorder, a simple wind instrument. He was smiling, clearly enjoying the disruption. It was obvious he had planned this, sneaking into the concert to interrupt. People began to whisper, some stood up, and a few called out for him to stop. The conductor stopped waving his baton, looking shocked and unsure what to do. The orchestra paused, leaving the soloist alone with the strange noise behind her. The tension in the room grew. For a moment, the young violinist seemed frozen. The interruption was not just rude, it was a direct challenge. The audience was watching her, waiting to see how she would react. Would she give up? Would she stop playing? Would she get angry? But then slowly she lifted her bow again. She took a deep breath and started to play louder, stronger. Her music grew bold, as if she was answering the challenge directly. She did not let the noise break her spirit. Instead, she made her violin speak louder and clearer than before. The sound filled the hall again, this time with more power and confidence. She moved with the music, her body flowing as she played, showing her skill and determination. The audience, at first shocked, now watched in awe. It was no longer just a solo. It was a moment of courage and strength. The young man with the recorder tried to keep playing, but he was met with an unexpected force. She was not just ignoring him. She was fighting back with her music. Her playing was so good, so full of emotion that it turned the interruption into something new, a kind of musical conversation. The conductor, seeing this, motioned for the orchestra to join again. Slowly, the music came back together, the violins, cellos, and horns rising in support of the soloist. The audience began to clap softly, encouraging her. Some smiled, others had tears in their eyes. They could feel the emotion, the story being told through the sound. The young man stopped playing, his smile fading. He looked surprised, almost embarrassed. The power of her music had taken the attention away from his prank. He slipped out quietly, no longer able to spoil the moment. The soloist kept playing, finishing the piece with grace and beauty. When the last note hung in the air, the audience erupted into applause. Many stood clapping loudly, cheering her bravery and talent. The night had taken an unexpected turn, but it had ended in a way no one would forget. Backstage, friends and teachers rushed to congratulate her. They hugged her and told her how proud they were. The young violinist smiled, feeling a mix of relief and happiness. She had faced something difficult and come out stronger. It was a night she would remember for the rest of her life. Later, when the video of the performance was shared online, it quickly spread. People everywhere praised her calmness and strength. They saw not just a musical performance, but a story about facing challenges without giving up. For the young violinist, the concert was more than just a chance to play music. It was a moment that showed her true spirit and passion. No matter what happened, she knew she could face anything with her music. The night was supposed to be a peaceful celebration of music and talent, but everything changed in just a few moments. The quiet sound of the violin had been the only thing filling the room, soft and beautiful. Then the strange noise came, unexpected and jarring, like a sudden crack in a calm lake. It caught everyone by surprise. The young man who had interrupted was not just anyone. He was known in the local music community, but not for good reasons. A year earlier, he had been asked to leave the music program because of his bad behavior. Teachers had warned him many times, but he had refused to take things seriously. He was loud and often distracted others. He never worked hard to improve, and his attitude caused trouble. So, when he showed up that night with his cheap plastic recorder, no one was shocked that he wanted to cause trouble again. People in the audience whispered to each other, some looking confused and others upset. Parents of the performers frowned, worried about the disrespect. The orchestra members looked at each other, unsure how to react. The conductor's calm and steady expression was gone. He was clearly caught off guard and struggled to decide whether to stop the concert or try to continue. The young violinist stood on the stage, alone, surrounded by silence except for the annoying noise behind her. Her heart pounded. She had practiced for so long to get this chance, and now someone was trying to ruin it. Her hands shook slightly as she held her violin and bow, but inside a fire began to grow. She wasn't going to let someone else steal her moment. For a moment, she just looked out at the crowd, then back toward the young man at the back of the hall. His eyes sparkled with mischief, thinking this was a joke, a way to get attention. He wasn't ready for what was coming. Slowly, she raised her bow again. The first note she played after the interruption was soft but strong. It was like saying, "I'm still here. I'm not afraid." Her fingers moved quickly over the strings, and the music began to grow louder. She didn't try to fight the noise with anger or shouting. Instead, she used her skill and the power of the music itself. The sound from her violin started to fill the room again. This time it was bolder and more confident. It was a musical answer to the disruption, a way to take back control of the stage. The audience began to listen again, drawn into the story she was telling with her music. The young man at the back seemed confused at first. He expected her to stop or get angry, but instead she was playing like never before. He tried to continue playing his recorder, but it was clear that he was no match for the power of the violin. The sound of the plastic instrument was weak and annoying, but the violin was strong and beautiful. The orchestra saw what was happening and slowly started to play again. The conductor nodded to the musicians, encouraging them to support the soloist. The music grew richer and fuller, surrounding her and making her sound even stronger. It was no longer just a solo, it was a team effort, a moment of unity between the musicians on stage. The audience watched in silence, some with tears in their eyes. They could feel the emotion coming from the violinist's playing. She was telling a story without words, a story of courage, determination, and refusing to be broken. The young man's interruption had turned into something completely different. As the music built to a powerful ending, the young man realized that he had lost the moment. His smile faded and he stopped playing. Slowly, he turned and left the hall quiet and defeated. The audience gave a soft cheer, showing their support for the young violinist. The final notes of the piece hung in the air, beautiful and full of meaning. When she finished, the audience erupted in applause. Some people stood clapping loudly. Others wiped tears from their eyes. The young violinist smiled, feeling proud and relieved. She had faced a challenge and come out stronger. Backstage, her friends and teachers rushed to congratulate her. They hugged her tightly and told her how amazing she had been. The teachers praised not only her skill but also her strength and courage. It was a moment they would all remember. In the days that followed, the story of the concert spread quickly. A video of the performance was shared online, and people from around the world watched it. Many were moved by how she handled the unexpected interruption. They saw a young person who did not give up, who used her talent and heart to turn a difficult moment into something beautiful. The young violinist became an inspiration to many. She showed that no matter what happens, it is possible to keep going and stay true to yourself. She reminded people that music is not just notes and rhythms, but a way to express feelings and overcome challenges. The young man who had caused the disruption later apologized. He said he had not expected her to be so strong and talented. He admitted that his actions were wrong and promised to change. His apology was accepted, but the young violinist knew that what really mattered was what she had shown that night: her courage, her passion, and her refusal to be stopped. The concert had been more than just a performance. It was a lesson in strength, kindness, and the power of music to bring people together. For the young violinist, it was the beginning of a new chapter. She knew that there would be more challenges ahead, but she was ready. With her violin in hand, she felt she could face anything. The days following the concert were filled with a mix of excitement and quiet reflection for the young violinist. The experience on stage, that night filled with music and unexpected interruption, stayed with her deeply. She felt a new sense of confidence, but also a stronger connection to the meaning behind her music. It was no longer just about playing the right notes or getting the applause. It was about sharing something real, something that could reach people even in difficult moments. At school and around town, people talked about what had happened. Some students who had once ignored her now looked at her with respect. Teachers smiled knowingly when they saw her, proud to have witnessed her strength. Even strangers who had never heard of her before sent messages of encouragement, inspired by the video of her performance that had spread online. But the young violinist stayed humble. She knew that this moment did not define her forever. It was just one step on a long journey. Every day still meant practicing for hours, pushing herself to improve, learning from mistakes, and preparing for what would come next. She was determined not to let success make her careless or proud. One afternoon, she sat in the music room at school, her violin resting gently on her shoulder. The notes she played were soft and steady, each one carefully shaped. The room was quiet except for the sound of the bow moving over the strings. She focused on the music, feeling it flow through her fingers. It was her way of calming her mind and finding peace. Her teacher entered the room and watched her play for a moment before speaking. "You've grown so much," the teacher said, smiling. "Not just as a musician, but as a person. That night on stage, you showed everyone what it means to be brave and true to yourself." The young violinist nodded, feeling a warm glow inside. She was grateful for the support, but she also knew that bravery was not something that always came easily. Sometimes it meant facing fears alone, practicing when tired, and staying focused even when things felt hard. Later that week, the local newspaper asked to do an interview with her. They wanted to know how she had felt during the concert, how she had managed to keep playing when everything seemed to go wrong. She agreed, hoping her story might encourage others who faced challenges. During the interview, she spoke honestly. She talked about the long hours of practice, the fear of making mistakes, and the feeling of being overwhelmed when the interruption happened. But she also spoke about the moment she decided to keep playing, not for the applause, but because the music was inside her. Something no one could take away. Her words were simple but powerful. They reminded people that courage is not about never being afraid. It is about choosing to move forward despite fear. The interview was shared widely, and many people wrote to say how much it had touched them. Meanwhile, the young man who had caused the interruption was dealing with his own feelings. After the concert, he felt embarrassed and ashamed. He had meant the prank to be funny, but instead it had shown his weakness. Seeing how the violinist had responded with strength made him realize he wanted to change. He wanted to be better. He reached out to the music teachers and apologized sincerely. They welcomed his honesty but made it clear that respect and hard work were the only ways back into the program. The young man promised to work on himself, both as a musician and as a person. The music community slowly began to heal from the disruption. The young violinist's performance became a symbol of hope and resilience. It showed that even when things don't go as planned, there is a way to find beauty and strength. As the school year went on, the young violinist continued to grow. She took part in new concerts, joined competitions, and worked with different teachers to explore new styles of music. Each experience added to her skill and confidence. She was no longer just the quiet student in the back of the classroom. She was becoming a leader, someone others looked up to. Her family noticed the change too. They saw how she carried herself with quiet confidence, how she was kinder and more patient with others. They were proud of her not just for her talent, but for her heart. One evening, after a long day of practice, she sat by the window, violin resting on her lap. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky with soft colors. She thought about the journey ahead, the dreams she had, the challenges she might face, and the music she would play. She knew the road would not always be easy. There would be days of doubt, moments of struggle, and times when she might feel alone. But she also knew that music was her voice, her way to connect with the world and herself. With a quiet smile, she picked up her bow again and began to play. The notes floated through the room, soft and clear, carrying all the hopes and dreams inside her. It was a reminder that every day was a chance to start again, to keep moving forward, and to find strength in the music. The concert hall was filled with a new kind of energy now. After the young violinist had taken control of the stage despite the unexpected interruption, the mood had shifted from confusion to something almost magical. What started as a moment of chaos was turning into a performance no one would ever forget. As she played, her music grew stronger and more passionate. The bow moved across the strings with confidence and power. Each note told a story of courage, determination, and the refusal to be defeated by a moment of disrespect. It was clear to everyone watching that this was not just a simple solo anymore. It was a conversation between her and the interruption, a challenge that she met with grace and skill. The young man who had tried to ruin the performance looked on from the back of the hall. His smile had faded, replaced by surprise and maybe even a little respect. He did not expect her to respond the way she did. Instead of stopping or getting upset, she had taken his interruption and turned it into something beautiful. For a moment, he looked unsure of what to do next. The audience was completely captivated. Some sat forward in their seats. Others closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. The atmosphere was electric, filled with a mix of tension and hope. Everyone could feel the young violinist's passion and strength through the sound of her instrument. Behind her, the orchestra began to join in again. At first softly, then more boldly. The conductor nodded to the musicians, guiding them back into the music with steady hands. Together, they built a rich and full sound that supported the soloist perfectly. The music became a powerful wave carrying the audience along. As the performance reached its peak, the young violinist played with everything she had. Her fingers flew over the strings and her bow moved like a painter's brush, creating vivid colors with sound. The energy in the hall was electric and it felt as if time had stopped. Everyone was caught in the moment, holding their breath as the music swelled. The young man with the recorder finally stopped playing. His cheeks were flushed and he looked down at his hands. He had lost the battle on the stage. Slowly, he slipped out of the hall, leaving the audience to focus on the young violinist's final notes. She finished the piece with a soft, lingering note that seemed to float in the air. There was a moment of silence, a stillness that held the weight of the moment. Then the applause broke out, loud, strong, and full of emotion. People stood up, cheering and clapping. Some wiped tears from their eyes. It was clear that the performance had touched everyone deeply. Backstage, the young violinist was surrounded by friends, family, and teachers. They hugged her tightly, telling her how proud they were. Her face was flushed with excitement and relief. She smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. She had faced something difficult and had turned it into a moment of beauty and strength. News of the concert spread quickly. Videos of the performance appeared online, gaining thousands of views in just a few hours. People from different parts of the country and even other countries watched and shared the story. Many left comments praising her bravery and talent. Some said her performance gave them hope during hard times. Others admired how she kept calm and strong in the face of disruption. The young violinist read some of the comments, feeling humbled and grateful. She never expected her music to reach so many people or to inspire them in this way. It reminded her that music was more than just notes. It was a way to connect with others, to share feelings, and to find strength even in difficult moments. In the days that followed, she received invitations to perform at other events and even offers from music schools interested in her talent. She was beginning to realize that this night was just the start of something bigger, but she stayed focused on her practice, knowing that hard work and dedication would always be needed. Her family was proud but also careful to remind her to stay grounded. They encouraged her to enjoy the moment but not lose sight of the work ahead. They supported her dreams and helped her balance school, practice, and rest. The young man who had interrupted the concert reached out later to apologize again. This time his words felt more sincere. He admitted that he had acted out of frustration and jealousy. Hearing the music had shown him how much effort and heart went into the performance. He promised to work on himself and respect others. The young violinist accepted the apology. She believed in second chances and understood that everyone made mistakes. What mattered most was the willingness to learn and grow. She hoped that he would find a new path in music, one built on respect and dedication. As the season moved on, the young violinist continued to perform. Each concert was a new opportunity to share her music and connect with the audience. She learned that every performance was different, sometimes smooth and easy, sometimes challenging. But no matter what, she carried the lesson from that night with her, that true strength comes from inside, and that music can be a powerful way to express it. She also started to help others. She gave small lessons to younger students and encouraged them to believe in themselves. She shared her story not to boast but to remind them that challenges could be overcome with courage and hard work. One afternoon she sat quietly in the park with her violin. The sun was warm and birds sang softly around her. She played a simple melody, feeling the joy of music in its purest form. It was a moment of peace, a reminder of why she loved to play. Looking back, she knew that night on the stage had changed her. It was a night of interruption and challenge, but also a night of triumph and discovery. It taught her that music was more than a skill. It was a way of life, a language of the heart. She smiled, thinking about the future. No matter what came next, she was ready to face it. With her violin in hand and music in her soul, she knew she could create performances that would touch people's hearts for years to come. Time passed, and the young violinist's life began to take on new colors. The night when she had faced the interruption and turned it into a memorable performance was no longer just a memory. It had become a turning point. People who had once only seen her as a quiet student now recognized her as a strong, talented artist with a bright future ahead. With every new concert and practice session, she grew more confident. But she never forgot the lessons she learned that night. The courage to keep playing when things got tough, the power of calm in chaos, and the belief that music could speak louder than words. These lessons stayed with her like a gentle light guiding her forward. Her family continued to support her, proud but always reminding her to stay humble and focused. They knew that the path of a musician could be full of ups and downs, but they also knew that she had something special, not just skill but heart. At school, she became a quiet leader. She helped younger students who were nervous about performing, sharing her own experiences and encouraging them to believe in themselves. She told them that mistakes were part of learning, and that even the best musicians felt scared sometimes. What mattered was to keep going. One day she was asked to speak at a community event about her journey. At first she felt nervous. Speaking in front of people was different from playing music, but she remembered how she had faced her fears on stage and decided to try. When it was her turn, she stood up and spoke honestly, with kindness and humility. She talked about the night of the interrupted concert, about the fear and the surprise, but also about the strength she found inside herself. She explained how music helped her express feelings she could not put into words and how it gave her the courage to keep moving forward. The audience listened quietly, many nodding in agreement. After the talk, several people came up to her to say how much they had been touched. Some shared their own stories of fear and challenge. She realized that her music and her story were helping others find hope and courage. It was a new kind of reward, different from applause or awards. Meanwhile, the young man who had interrupted the concert was working hard to change. He had joined a music group that focused on teamwork and respect. He practiced every day, learning not only to play but also to listen and support others. It was not easy for him, but he was determined. He wanted to be part of something positive. The young violinist noticed his efforts. She believed in forgiveness and growth, so she quietly supported his progress. It was a reminder to her that everyone could learn from mistakes and that kindness could help change hearts. As the years went by, the young violinist's love for music deepened. She explored new styles and composers, discovering the endless possibilities of sound. She composed her own pieces, inspired by her experiences and feelings. Her music became a reflection of her journey, sometimes joyful, sometimes sad, but always honest. She also started working with local schools and organizations to bring music to children who might not have easy access to instruments or lessons. She knew that music could change lives just as it had changed hers. She wanted to share that gift with others. One afternoon, while visiting a small school in a nearby town, she met a boy who reminded her of the young man who had interrupted her concert years before. He was shy and unsure, but when he picked up the violin, something inside him sparked. She smiled, remembering her own journey, and offered to help him learn. It was a moment full of hope and new beginnings. Her story and music continued to inspire many people. She was invited to perform in bigger halls and even recorded an album. Yet no matter how far she went, she stayed true to herself, humble, kind, and full of passion for what she loved. Looking back, she understood that the interrupted concert was not just a challenge, but a gift. It had shown her the strength inside her and the power of music to heal and connect. It taught her to face life with courage and kindness, to turn problems into opportunities. She often thought about that night, the silence, the surprise, the music that rose from the quiet, and she felt grateful. Grateful for the chance to grow, to learn, and to share her voice with the world. And so, with her violin in hand and a heart full of dreams, she continued to play, to inspire, and to believe that music could make a difference, one note at a time.